Most of us live lives of confusion, distortion, even contortion, pressed into a mold and stressed by a worldview. But what if we were to realize this, acknowledge it, and what if we were also to activate unused capacity, strength from within? Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Center of Calmness. Today, we are super blessed to have Samantha Gillis with us, a mother of two beautiful children, a intranet entrepreneur, multi-event speaker, mentor of many, experienced mentor, as well as an author. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me here, DK. I am so excited.
This is awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. And let me ask, just to begin, how are things up in your neck of the woods up there in Canada?
Well, I was just mentioning backstage, my car wasn't able to start. It's getting cold here, but nothing that a nice warm cup of coffee and cozy blankets can't fix.
Absolutely, right. Nothing better than a cup of coffee. Absolutely, to warm up a bit. And what is cold in your area?
Well, we can get down to the minus 45s. I believe we're in Celsiuses here. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
minus 45 C. I gotcha. That's pretty cold. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
here in Houston, 20. I think it reached maybe just below freezing for maybe a half hour or an hour last night, something like that. So it's a little bit warmer. We're enjoying. This is the good season now. We pay for it later in the summer with extreme heat and high
Oh, yeah.
humidity all year long. So we don't get that nice crisp. The bugs don't die here, right? So there's no cycle of seasons that you enjoy. And is that a relatively accurate view out your window or out the window
Uh,
of your background into the mountains?
yeah, similar. I mean, you'd have to drive about an hour to get that sort of view, but it's pretty close. Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Wow, that's great. Here it's as flat as a pancake, which is terrible in the hurricane season as the hurricane rolls in and drops, 40 plus inches of rain sometimes. And well, it's got nowhere to go because it's flat, right? So we just have to wait
Right.
for it to drain out. But yeah, so super excited that you joined us here at Center of Calmness. And I wanted to just start with just exploring the journey. You've been on such a long and interesting journey, perhaps not even long, but just with such an amount of energy. That's what really attracted me to invite you here on the show, because you've gone through a lot of transformative experiences, and I think our audience would be benefited just by hearing bits and pieces of that journey and some of the key moments. You started out as an actor, right?
Yeah, yeah. Straight out of high school, I went to acting school, and it really did change absolutely everything for me. Before I went to acting school, well, to be perfectly frank, I was a pretty miserable person. I went through some trauma in my life, and people really didn't want to be around me because I was pretty mean. And then I went to acting school, learned how to express myself properly, and uh, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. Okay, unfortunately, I can't leave it at that. Right, we're gonna have to go a little bit deeper than the rest is history. Right now, let's just fast forward to today when you're super successful and you've written multiple books and done all this stuff, and you have a growing community and everything's glowing. Right, but something happened right in between then and now. What?
Yeah,
So tell us a bit about the acting experience and how you found some level of transformation and shift through that process.
yeah, absolutely. So, well, it really started with my weight loss journey. So, through my anger and through my anguish that I had went through, I was I was pretty chubby. I was very obese at a very young age, and I didn't know any better. Like my dad owned a grocery store, so I always had access to food, and no one ever took the time to teach me how to be healthy and how to actually look after myself. So when I went to acting school, there was a moment, DK. It was a singular moment. You know when they say that change happens in an instant?
Yep.
This was one of those instances. And what it was we were all sitting in a circle. The room is black. The actors' auditoriums is just like, it's just a black room. The floor is painted black, the ceiling's black, the walls are black. And we were sitting in this black room in a circle, and my teacher was talking about typecasting, okay? And just as a flyby comment, he goes, like Sam here, who will always be the comic relief, because it was fat. And right, and that was really painful. I'm like,
Of
well,
course.
I want to, right, I want to be lead. I want to be the damsel in distress.
Right.
And and through that moment, that's what sparked me to hire my personal trainer. And then I went through a major weight loss transformation. It was like between 60 and 70 pounds. So long ago, I don't really remember, but it was transformatable experience, because from that point, that's where I really started to learn how to utilize my confidence. And then so I started a modeling career. I couldn't start an acting career at that point in time, because when I graduated acting school, it was during the writer's strike and the creative strike, right? So actors were on strike, and the writers were on strike, and the producers were on strike. Everybody was on strike. So so I couldn't niche my way into the industry. So I started modeling, which was so much fun. And then from there I was like, well, what else can I do? Where else can I go? And that's how I discovered Refashion Your Life. And we talked a little bit about that. That's how I found my way online. I'm like, well, why don't I just take my acting skills online? This is the place to be. And that's how that really started.
So you were acting, you were a well-trained actor, went through acting school, graduated, you got the strike, you do a pivot, right? Back before pivoting was a thing, you did a pivot, right, into
Yeah.
modeling. And then you loved modeling, but you saw something greater
Yeah.
that led you forward. Tell me about that. Tell us about that particular moment where you weren't just happy to stay in modeling, but you saw a broader perspective and a broader mission for yourself.
Well, I did take my modeling online as well. I figured out that that was the best way to get my gigs and such. But I think more what you're talking about is when I chose to really focus in on refashion, what I really discovered, because I had fallen into the personal development rabbit hole, right? Out of acting school, I just I fell in. I don't know when that moment might be for anyone else, but that's that's what it was for me. And and so I just started teaching personal development through my Refashion Your Life page. And that started filling my cup, because all of a sudden I was taking all of these strategies that I was learning from seminars and books and whatnot, and translating them into these very humorous and very fun, but very short little shows where people could really consume the lessons. It was so magical.
Interesting. So short format, kind of light, quick hitting, right? To really get the point across quicker than some of the longer trainings would. Would you mind sharing some names from back then, as far as the personal development greats of that time? I'm sure the names change and they rotate here and there, but any in particular that stood out as key mentors from that time period?
Okay, so well, Robert Kiyosaki was one of my
Okay.
first mentors. Napoleon Hill, I consumed his books so fast, and would constantly just plug myself in. Um, I remember when I was working at Jenny Craig for a while, and I would just like plug in when I was working. It was so fun.
Right.
Yeah, Tony Robbins was still predominant then. Um, T. Harv Eker. Yeah, I studied with
Bihar.
under T. Harv
Yeah.
Eker. Yeah. So, and one oddball name that you've probably never heard of is Brandon Broadwater. I really, I don't enjoy him so much as a person, but I really enjoyed his content. Um, he introduced me to a game called the Game of Abundance. He created it. because he studied with Robert Kiyosaki, thought the cash flow game was really cool, and created his own spinoff. And that game is really special because it marries spirituality with money. And that was like, that's a game changer. I still play it to this day.
That's very cool. And we have Dwayne Lair on with us, confirming your choice of T. Harv as amazing, especially from the financial perspective, right?
Oh,
To
yeah.
help to grow wealth. And then you mentioned abundance, and abundance is such a key concept that even in the midst of all the personal development that's going on these days, you don't hear that much about abundance directly like that, where you actually have a game in front of you saying, we're going to focus just on abundance today.
Yeah. No, it's really good. I mean, there's definitely areas where I would shift it up for myself, but it really puts you in a nice focus on integrity, because that when I was in that space, when I was kind of in my refashion life space, I was learning the art of integrity. That was my big lesson, was how do I get integral? How do I make the choices that are going to be morally sound versus just becoming a celebrity to just be a celebrity for the sake of being a celebrity, which was the direction I was taking, right? So I learned very quickly in that space that moving into the celebrity space was very, very dangerous and a very corrupt place. That's another big part of why I chose to build refashing, because it was like a tunnel, right? You could build that authority without having to go through all the snaky traps, right?
I see. Without having to play their game, if you will, right? You're essentially
Yeah,
on your own. You're learning the key concepts and bringing them through your own channel, right, out to your own audience, which at
yeah,
the time was relatively rare. I think it's a lot more common now, but very rare, much more rare at the time. So that's completely awesome. So, what kind of audience were you attracting to Refashion Your Life at that time of when you were launching that?
yeah. I would say that my audience, well, Dave Hobley was a part of my audience. That's how
Oh,
I know
okay,
Dave
awesome. That's
Hobley.
great.
But yeah, so well, on a serious note, though, I have always been pretty. So middle-aged men I
There you
always
go.
tend to attract.
Right.
But that aside, it was, mom entrepreneurs, and it was very entrepreneurial focused. Um, I don't think that, like, looking back now, I don't really feel like I should have been targeting mama entrepreneurs, but like I was, because I was told to. But coming at it as a mom, it feels way more in alignment than it was as, a college student trying to teach moms how to step up to the plate.
Of course, but still an admirable achievement, right? To be able to do that as kind of before your family time or the family phase of your life, and still being able to reach out to such an audience and give them value. That's huge.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that reframe. That's beautiful.
Yeah. But as we were discussing before the show started, something happened with Refashion Your Life, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, as you know, yeah, Dave Hobley is awesome.
Dave Valley is
Um,
awesome completely.
I went through, so I'm a pretty decent manifester. Like you know what, I would say that I'm energetically mastered. And one of the things that I recognized in my growth when I was building Refashion was that I wasn't ready to be the leader that I was being called to be. Now, you might look at me today and say that I'm moving really, really fast in my development. Now, imagine that um, 6 times faster, right? Like, I was just shooting up at that point in time, and it was too much. It was too fast. And I remember a specific moment when I was walking down. So I was living in Vancouver at the time, and I was walking down a street, and it was like it was the windows, right? The window walls. I remember looking into one of the windows, looking at my reflection, and being like, I am not ready for this.
Mm.
And that seed created some tumble um, circumstances that happened. Now, it happened probably a month, 2 months down the road. But what ended up happening was three major occurrences. The first one was I had a web developer working in on my website, and he just imploded it from the inside out. Right?
Terrible.
The second, I know, it was so bad,
Terrible.
but
The
recoverable,
person
right?
you have to trust the most, right? Sabotage. Terrible.
But recoverable. So I'm not down for the count yet, right? I'm just like, oh my God, he just gave me so much work. We'll figure this out though.
Right.
And then the next hit happened. Now you have to realize all of this happened within a week. Like this, like it wasn't like, oh, this happened and then, oh, another traumatic experience, right? No, it was like wham, wham, wham. That was probably really loud. So yes, my web developer imploded my website. And then YouTube decided that my audio in one of my videos was copyrighted, which it wasn't. And they just tore down my entire channel. I'm a video marketer.
Yeah, it's not going to work. But it does demonstrate the power of YouTube, right? As far as all the content you
Right?
put on YouTube, right?
And all I can think is how my mentors were like, make sure you have backups. Make sure you have backups. Didn't have backups.
Oh no.
So well, I did, but nothing was like the one that I babied, right? So so that was blow number 2. And then blow number 3 was, so after all of this happened, I let my URL lapse. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But because there was this really sleazy sales model or business model back in 2010 where people would steal lapsed URLs that were high trafficked, well, I was one of those URLs. And yeah, within a blink of an eye, someone had swiped it out from underneath me and held it hostage for 10 full years. And yeah, ridiculous is what it is. And it wasn't until just recently, about 3 weeks ago, that I happened to check a domain site and it was available, and now it's back in my possession, which is intense and exciting and really, really profound.
Congratulations on getting it back, and congratulations for being patient enough to wait for it and keep an eye on it for 10 years. That's I'm not sure if I could follow that. That's a long time.
Yeah, well, you know what? The first half of me building the Light Warriors Academy was completely just me tearing myself apart because I kept comparing myself to a previous version of myself. It's like I just feel like I can't hold a candle to who I was 10 years ago. Now, gratefully, that dissipated, but it took a lot for me to feel confident enough that I was enjoying what it was that I was creating without judging myself based on who I was.
That's a very key point. I wonder if you might be able to expand on it. Where was that moment where the self-critic started to lose, right? Because for most of us, and especially most of us out there, the self-critic wins almost all the time, right? And it really diminishes our experience that we're able to achieve. And that's kind of the point of this whole broadcast is breaking free of that worldview, most of which is self-imposed, and getting out there and sharing our gifts to the full, right? So what was that point where the self-critic was super strong and holding you back, and then suddenly something happened, right? That gave you the power to shift out of that mode or change that voice into a voice that could support you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really challenging, but I had made a commitment to myself. Well, the route that I took was probably not the easiest route available, but I basically ripped the rug out from underneath me. I said, you know what, you're going to win or you're going to die trying. And so yeah, so for the first 6 months of me making this commitment, I just flopped around and I spent a lot of tears trying to just figure it out. And the landscape of the internet had changed completely. Like you have no idea the difference. And I completely stepped out for those 10 years. I switched rails and I started parenting. Right. And I don't give tech to my kids. So as a role model, I completely stepped out.
Yep.
And so I had to relearn everything. And it was chaotic, like things that I would be able to take advantage of now had price tags on it. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? It felt like the internet in general was just crowded, and I felt like I was just trying to elbow my way around to get any space to get my voice heard. And then I met Joel Bauer.
Right, right, and a mentor that we both share, and
That's
Joel
right.
has been super pivotal in my and one of Joel's key concepts that he brings up actually in a 2-day event that he used to give from time to time before the time of COVID, right? And I hope he'll return to that very soon, early next year. Is living a life by your own design, right? That comment, and as he reframes and rephrases that in so many different ways, and how that permeates a lot of his teaching, living a life by your own design. It just has a way of activating something very deep. And
Yeah.
yeah, personally very touched by that, and he's been such an inspiration to me as well, to develop my own system and way to move forward. But I am curious though, just to kind of close the loop on this story. What was the point of decision, right? Where you said, okay, I'm gonna take another run at this thing, even though it crashed and burned X years ago. It probably wasn't 10 years ago at this point, maybe 8 years, 7, 8 years ago. There's something that caused you to open your eyes and make that call. What was that?
100%. Yeah, to be frank, and it's not pretty, but it was the crumbling of my marriage. My husband would look over at me with almost like pity in his eyes and be like, "You're not happy." And I would look over at him, big doughy eyes, and be like, "What do you mean I'm not happy?" And as this kept coming to a head, and as he kept bringing it up, um, that's when I really realized that I was giving up on my dream, and that I was using my marriage and my family life as a way to hide from what my true purpose really was. And and I love my husband. Um, and we have a very interesting and dynamic relationship. We don't live together, but we don't live together because this is important, and the creation of this is important. And so yeah, it really was a thing where I had to pull the rug out from underneath me, because I was never going to do it when my family was my priority. um I just loved my family too much that I couldn't make my business a priority um, until I made that sever. So that, like I said, not pretty,
No, I
but
got
that's
you.
how I
Yeah,
did
I
it.
got you. And that's a fairly unique approach. I think most folks try to do everything, which is actually a fallacy, right? It's impossible to do everything, and so sometimes you do have to make choices, at least in certain time frames. And so
Yeah.
I do hope that as things settle, then who knows, maybe there's an opportunity for all that to come back together again. But so he's looking at you, your husband's looking at you, and he's making this comment and basically hitting you between the eyes with this thing, right? Was that the moment where you made a decision? Okay, I'm going to do something about this right now, or did it take some time to really ponder and consider
Well,
what his perspective was and what he saw in you, that as far as how you were responding to the family life and the fact that you had more potential that you wanted to get out into the world?
what happened first is I kept trying. Okay. I knew that this was a passion of mine. I knew that this was where I was meant to be. So, I talk a lot about failing forward, and that's what I would do is I would just like create lives and do posts, and they would have no real particular meaning. And a lot of them, yeah, they didn't really have any any real rhythm to them, flowery conversations, but at least I was doing something.
Sure.
Um, but my passion for it was totally gone. Um, I was doing it for the sake of doing it, not because it was where my joy was, not because it was my calling or anything. I was just throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something would stick. And as I kept doing that, it I don't know if I want to say it reaffirmed or reconfirmed, but it really put in my face that this is the only thing that's really right for me. And if I was going to be serious about it, then I would need to figure it out. And it did. It took me a while. I have journals. I would say that it really started at the tip end of 2017 was when the ideas really started to percolate in me, and I really started to get serious about it. So then in 2018, I would do like these stupid early morning broadcasts. I mean, I was working as a school bus driver at the time, and I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and do my morning routine. I know it's ridiculous.
Crazy. Yeah.
And I would do my broadcast because it was safe, right? No one's watching, but I'm
Right.
still getting up and I'm creating that daily habit. And so I did that for a while. And then as I just created that consistency, and then me and my husband, like we had this static, and it really got into this place. Well, thank you so much, Judy. I really got into this place of you're the reason that I can't be successful. And he'd be like, well, you're just as much to blame as I am, right? And that's when it came as a head for me that I can't do everything at once, that I'm extremely tunnel visioned, and I can put my priorities in different places at one time, right? Like I can be an excellent parent. I've proven to myself I can be an excellent parent when I'm in parenting mode.
Yep.
But when I'm in parenting mode and business mode, well, my parenting suffered like so bad. And that was the last thing that I wanted. So yeah, it was fairly gradual. It was about 3 years of priming the pump before it really even started to take off. And I got the courage to really go after it after about a year and a half of
I
priming the
gotcha.
pump.
I gotcha. And really, it was a matter of reawakening all those old experiences and
Yeah.
skills that were just waiting there, latent, right, and ready to be released again. So that's awesome that energy found its way into those seeds that you were planting, right? Even without joy at first, and even at 3 a.m., which I personally can't imagine doing broadcasts at 3 a.m. personally, but those are like seeds, right? And then with the energy you already had to germination, and then of course what we see now, right? The fruit of all of that work. So if I might ask, when did you meet Joel Bauer?
Joel Bauer, I met in Zero to Hero back in March, and it was really an intense experience because, like I said, for the first 6 months of me making this commitment, and I made that decision August of 2019. So the first 6 months was really flopping around like a fish, and then COVID hit, and it was like I remember all of a sudden it just like felt so quiet. Like it felt quiet. If quiet was a feeling, right? And then all of a sudden I went into this super speed. And I just felt like miles and miles and miles ahead of everyone else. And that was really, really an interesting experience until I hit a wall. And it was shortly after I hit that wall and was like, okay, well, what do I do now with this? Hopefully, like I can figure this out. Um, Joel Bauer landed into my lap again, thanks to Dave Hobley.
Thanks again, Dave. Right? Dave is such a. I mean, he's such a powerful member of our community with Joel Bauer and everyone else. Always bringing solutions. And yeah, I actually look forward to working with Dave a little deeper once I get a free moment myself. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's been totally great and very inspirational to me as well. But to clarify, what was that wall that you were running into right before you met Joel? What was stopping you at that point? Because you'd already made the commitment, right, to focus exclusively on your business. You began to rearrange your family life a little bit at that time, right? But there was something that was holding you back right then before Zero to Hero, right?
Yeah, I would say that it was probably the pieces. So I knew I had the talent and I knew I had the capacity and I knew I had the direction, but I was missing the pieces. So here I am in this completely dead space. Remember how I said at the beginning it felt like so elbowy and really
Yep.
claustrophobic? That completely dissipated in this space. It was like I felt like if I did a yodel, I would actually be able to hear myself, right? And
Excellent.
and so with that, it really allowed me the opportunity to, well, like I said, I just moved at a super speed for about 3 days. But what that wall was yes, like I said, I had the talent, I had the capability, but I didn't have the pieces. So eventually I was just like, well, what do I do next? And then here comes Joel Bauer, make your book, build a
I got
banner.
you. Yeah, just write your book, get it out there, right? Write it overnight, or use the technique that he teaches to write it super quick, right? We don't have to go into that in detail here, but yeah,
No.
so many great and elegant solutions that he offers. And for me,
So
one of the keys is structure, right? So he gives you a structured approach that helps to put all the pieces together.
well, and he just pulls you forward, right? And yeah, at that point, I had dropped everything else that I had tried gluing together, like any of the software that I had picked up and I was trying to work with, any mentors that I was working with at the time. I dropped it all. Well, if I may, I'll let you in on a little secret.
Okay.
Now, you're a fan of T. Harv Eker, right?
Somewhat,
You know
yeah. I
T.
haven't
Harv
spent much
Eker?
time with T. Harv. Dwayne Lair actually had probably spent a bit more time.
Not a big deal. So one year I went to 3 of T. Harv Eker's events in 1 year, and he gave away what he calls like this 90-day wealth conditioning program.
Okay.
And anytime I have done this wealth conditioning program, it has made profound results in my life. Now, prior to me meeting Joel Bauer, the run up to me meeting Joel Bauer was me doing this 90-day wealth conditioning program. So, what I truly believe in the heart of my hearts is when I put a value on what I wanted to enter into my life, I believe Joel Bauer was the answer to that prayer that I had created. And
How about
yeah,
that? Okay, yeah. So that's a manifestation path. Yeah,
that's right. And
yeah.
so when I met Joel Bauer, that's why I was like I was so comfortable and ready to drop everything else because I'm like, you're my answer. You're my answer. You're what I was waiting for. So that gave me that full capacity to just listen and pull forward and follow along. That's the key is to actually do the work and follow along. It's one thing to listen to mentors and to hear what they're saying, but it's a completely another thing to yeah, he did so good. Yeah,
Right.
he took me from 0 to 32.
Powerful T. Harv's program.
Well, yeah. Well, and he of course learned from Joel Bauer. So, you know,
Absolutely. Mentor of
all of
mentor.
the all of the stars just aligned.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how that all kind of came to be.
So I wonder if you might offer a quick tip to the audience here. And this is just something that I noticed because I also was in Zero to Hero, and I actually went through Zero to Hero twice. Right, I did the informal one with Jeff, and then I did the formalized 14-day program of where Deborah was the case study, if you will. Right, but
Yeah.
it was very obvious just sitting there in the collective of Zoom that you were all in. Right, it was super obvious. How would you recommend someone in the audience who's maybe a little bit trepidatious, just not quite sure of themselves, but they want to show up and they want to crush it like you're doing, right? What advice would you give them?
My biggest advice, and it's not easy, but get comfortable with being uncomfortable and burn the bridges. I mean, it's what I did, so it's the only thing that I can recommend. But if you really want to see yourself succeed, and if you really, really want to achieve that goal that you're after, you gotta burn the bridges. You gotta tear down those comfort zones and just say I'm all in, and I give it up to the spirit, God, universe, whatever terminology you enjoy to use, but just trust in the process and know where it is that you want to go. Before you burn the bridges, know where you're going to go.
Right. Chart a course, right? Or at least believe that you have a course in front of you, even if you can't see it. Which in my case is pretty frequent, right? In a lot of cases, I'm being asked to do something that's the next step forward that I can't see, right? But those that are recommending it to me or advising or saying this is what you got to do if you want to move forward, well, they've seen it, right? They've seen it so many times that it's secondhand to them, and it's just a matter of that it's so new to me, right? That I've got to put some faith out there and step forward into that without perhaps fully understanding what it is I'm doing, but still full confidence, like you say, right?
Yeah, you have to be willing to lean into those nights of crying yourself to sleep and just trust that you're creating something bigger and that you know that you are headed in the right direction, because that's the only way you'll succeed.
Absolutely. And speaking of success and hard work, you've just completed a pretty major program, right?
I did. I'm closer presenter certified thanks to the Joel Bauer Masterclass.
Congratulations for that, right? So we're so excited to see what you're going to do with that certification. And what, if I might ask, can you tip a little bit about what you might be developing and preparing for launch?
I'm so excited and ridiculously nervous about what I've created. It's incredibly magical. It is a compile of my life's work. It was so hard to narrow it down and create something that was so easy and so dynamic. But going back to what we were kind of talking about pulling the rug out from underneath you, in my process, I really do teach you how to get aligned to your vision. That's the number one goal. That's the number one step, because you're never going to take the courageous steps that you that you want to go after if you don't know where you're going. You just do. You just need to have an idea of what it is that you're creating. So that's the number one step. The second one is your vulnerability, where I compile both my metaphysical and my acting skills to help a person delayer all of the jails and ickies and the stickies and the things that hold them back. Okay, we go through that conditioning process, because if you aren't willing to get vulnerable with yourself and go through those spaces, then you'll never connect to people online the way that you want to connect with them, which is really the honey pot, the jackpot, the gold pot at the end of the rainbow, if you will, of my program, which is camera confidence and getting people able to share their own messages.
Camera confidence. That's awesome. Cool. Do you have a rough time frame of your launch?
Yes, I am planning my launch for December 15th, so it's coming pretty fast.
Okay, that's a very specific time frame. That's awesome, and not too far away, right? Only 2 weeks. Wow, I'm excited. I'll be waiting on the edge of my seat for 2 weeks now to see how this works out.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to have you there, because I think you'll enjoy it. It's meant to be pretty entertaining, but with a lot of gems and really concrete tactics that you can take away and start to get really good with yourself.
All right, excellent. Looking forward to that. And Dave Hobley is with us as well, saying, "You go, Sam."
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you every day of the week.
Dave is awesome. So I wanted to leave some links up for the audience in case they might wish to reach out to you, which I'm sure they will. So it's Samantha Gillis at Refashion. This is the relaunch, the 10-year. This is like 10 years of, as you and I are both in an investment course as well, right? They talk about the energy coil, right? So that energy coil has been coiling for 10 years, up and down, and now it's ready to go, right? Refashionyourlife.com, part 2.
I know, and I couldn't think of a better thing to do with Refashion other than to make it my gift page, because it created such an impact in my life and in my history that it really was my way of being able to pay it forward and say thank you for closing that loop for me. So that is where I offer a copy of my book, and of course some other resources to help you get up on your feet and getting yourself online and broadcasting.
Awesome. Well, I direct everyone to refashionyourlife.com, freshly relaunched and full of resources and continuous opportunity as Samantha keeps building it out, which I'm sure will happen extremely rapidly. And then I also wanted to share Samantha's email address at guidemesamantha@gmail.com.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Samantha, it's been such a pleasure to have you join us here at Center of Calmness today.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my story, because I believe if you're willing to take a chance on yourself, then that really is a key way of de-stressing your life,
Definitely.
right?
Taking
Yeah.
yourself out of that world mode, or I would say, actually, it is world mode, right? The mode the world would have you in, and don't think that's not by design, but really, it's the design that comes from within that needs to be released.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Well, thank you again so much for having me here in the Center of Calmness. I couldn't think of a better place to be. So I really, really appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Samantha. Again, appreciate it very much. I'm Derek Warner.